The intended use of this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests independently, and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Updog Challenge Incorporated, its sponsors, or any other partnered organizations. Updog Challenge Incorporated does not guarantee the accuracy or reliability of any opinions expressed. In no way should the information provided during the Sweet Spot and Updog podcast be considered veterinary, medical, legal, or professional advice. At all times, the advice of your personal professional should supersede any information provided, derived, or inferred from listening to this podcast.
Ready, set, go.
To the Sweet Spot, an Updog podcast. I'm Andrea Morissette.
And I am Jack Bailey, and we've got an amazing guest today.
Who is this guy?
Hey, I'm Ben Rimbey.
It's our first guest to introduce themselves. That's great.
Yeah.
Many of you know Ben through the Updog community, and many of you may know that Ben and his wife Anna also have a podcast, the Inspired Dog Podcast. So if you haven't checked that out, do so. It is great. They often have episodes about disc dogging, but they also often have episodes about just all sorts of things related to dog training. And they're very interesting, very easy to listen to. Check that out.
I was actually thinking, Jack, I was wondering when he's going to invite us to be on his podcast. I was like,
should do that.
Why haven't we had a wild party with Jack and Dre on your podcast yet?
That's a good idea.
They have standards over there at the Inspired Dog Podcast.
Oh, snap. You deprecate yourself, buddy. You keep your self-deprecation over there. All right. Well, you guys know Ben.
We should definitely do it. We haven't invited guests on yet, so we have to. We've had a few people reach out about that. We just have to do it. We just record it at odd times, and
are you guys late night
we
people?
definitely need to actually organize it and actually get some guests on too.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
I've just invited us, Jack.
I know. Dre's just inviting.
I've invited us to the Inspire podcast. But hey, I mean, Ben sort of invited himself to this podcast, so we're even, Steven. The workout's just fun.
That's true. I'm not a Updog champion, so I don't get the free invite. I have to beg to get on here.
You have to work for your invite.
I only get second and third place or top tens. I've never won one.
But you've been on the podcast twice, so that does say something.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
Maybe it's the not winning that gets you there, man.
That could be.
Keep it up.
It could be, or just be really loud all the time so people know who you are.
So the reason that I asked Ben to join us today, actually, Ben and I have been chatting back and forth about a topic a little bit, and as we were discussing, I was like, hey, this would make a really good podcast episode. It's definitely something that I'm sure people talk about, people wonder about. Ben had gone to the Ashley Whippet Invitational World Finals. Mm-hmm. And as you know from listening to possibly the last podcast, if you were listening, Dre and I just returned from the Skyhounds World Championships. Mm-hmm. And we, of course, all three of us were engaged in playing freestyle and, of course, got judged by different groups of folks, so not the same judges. And these questions kept coming up, these wonderings, good discussions about points and how we earn our points and things like that. And I don't want to really tell you the title of our topic yet, because I think it'll kind of come out naturally as we talk. So I have a question both for Ben and for Dre to start us off. So I'll start with Ben since he's our guest. How do you gauge your success on the freestyle field?
Yeah. I think we actually talked about this a little bit last time too, which is I think it's important to keep going over it because it's hard to know what was successful. And for me, mine's a little less scientific probably than some people's. I'd imagine Dre has more scientific method on how she does it. I'm less type A than some other people in that way, which can be good and bad, probably. So for me, I know it was a successful round when I felt like our catches were good, because I know if we get a solid catch ratio, it's going to be a really high end round these days, because I do a lot of funky things on the field. So if Susie is in a good catching mode, that's how it normally goes. So at AWI, she only caught 3/4 of the disc. So it's 75% sounds better than 3/4, but when you think about it, like a quarter of the throws were missed. And that's what kind of brought upon this subject of this podcast that we'll get into later, is like trying to figure out how to improve that. Because the throws were almost all there and catchable, and very, like, in my opinion, watching through things, it was just like, man, there was just a lot of easy misses. While then it might be good that we're recording this right now, because last week was our Minnesota State champs while Skyhounds was going on. We hosted the state championships, and Susie and I had a great freestyle round on Saturday. I was very proud of it. Walking off the field, I knew it was good. So I was gauging it, like, I was like, that felt good. And you can see the judges like looking really happy about it too. Like, everybody just, you can just tell it was a good feeling, because we hit the majority of things we wanted to hit. Our big moves were good, and you want to hit your, like, I want to hit my bigger moves, because those are going to stand out to judges, and I try to place those in parts around the routine. So, and you want to hit your beginning stuff, your ending stuff, and have good stuff in the middle, so the judges stay entertained throughout the routine. And that didn't happen on Sunday. But on Sunday, instead of what normally happens if it's not a great routine, I'm like, oh, what could I have done to try to set Susie up better? Because she just missed some easy ones. Because you can be hit or miss. If she's on, it's like really, really cool, but it's a little bit inconsistent sometimes. She's more consistent than Joy, my pit bull, but like, she's way more consistent than that. But if you want to be a top end team, there's people that just have dogs that just catch so much easier so I have to set things up systematically, but sometimes just like, it's like the discs seem to matter. And maybe there's like things I need to do with my disc choice, with how she gets like tired throughout a round. And I'm just going all over the place, but I've been like figuring out, like,
I know, I ask a simple question.
setting up everything. There's so much to it that I think about, and that's why I guess we're doing this episode. I'm sorry.
That's
But
all right.
on Sunday, the Sunday State champs, I chose a different disc because I thought she'd be a little more tired that day after all the updog games and everything she was doing. She was doing great. There was no wind earlier in the day. I was judging level 1 freestyle, the novice intermediate teams, and there was no wind. I'm like, I'm going to bust out airs. There's no wind. I love airs with low to no wind. And then just before my round started, the wind came and I had my airs. I'm like, we'll rock it. I did not rock it. I failed her that round. I did not throw those well. And clearly I just need to practice more with them in the wind, but I'm used to superstar 235s in the wind. That's like my normal go-to, but they fall out of the air a little quicker when dogs get a little tired. So I think we would have done just fine and had a solid round if I would have just thrown my stars. Yeah, I feel like I failed her with my airs. So there's some stuff. I don't even know what the question was, but
so the question was, I'll repeat it to Dre.
Oh, how was it successful? I feel good getting off the field because we had a good catch ratio. We hit our big moves.
All right. So the answer that Ben gave before all of the rest of the stuff, which was very informative, was he wants to get catches and hit his big moves. Yeah. Dre, what is your primary goal for defining success when you leave the field or step out onto the field?
Before each round for each dog, I set 3 specific, measurable, attainable goals where I control the outcome. And if I hit those 3 goals, it's a win. And if I hit 2 out of 3 of those goals, it's pretty much a win. And if I hit 1 out of 3 of those goals, it's not a win. And if I hit none of them, I failed. And that's it. In the next round, I pick 3 new goals.
Are any of them related to your dog catching a disc?
I mean, they do revolve around success of specific moves. So like, let's say I have a sequence, let's say Magic's opening sequence. It would be to have intention on my Jakey and my roller so that I put him at the right BSP, because if I don't, the whole set's going to blow up. So that would be like one of my goals. And it's all around, it is all around having success in specific areas where I might, by default, if I'm not present, make the same mistake that I usually make over and over again. And so I call them sticky notes, or dropping a pin in your brain that is an alarm or a reminder that goes off before you do something that reminds you to do it a certain way. So I have a bunch of sticky notes in my brain. Tell me to do something right. Like if I was in somebody's ear being like, hey, don't forget to do it that way. That's kind of like what the sticky notes are. And so that's kind of what my goals are each round, is just to remember the thing that I'm supposed to remember when I'm in a stress situation. And in order to have that move be successful, a successful catch or move.
All right. So this idea
What
of,
about you, Jack? Don't you want to answer?
I mean, my first thing when I walk off the field, I know how many misses I had. And I also ask Kat to see if my thoughts are the same as hers. Because like sometimes I'm like, I think I only missed one. And she's like, no, you missed 8.
Yeah.
Because you weren't watching your dog or something. And usually we're not that far off. I'm just kind of kidding. But yeah, like I'll walk off and be like, I think that was, just one drop. And she's like, it's either 1 or 2 based on, such and such or whatever. I notice that when a lot of teams walk off the field, their
That's
first
first
question to their friends is, how many drops was that? Let me see the video. I want to see the video.
Yeah.
And then getting into like what you and Ben were kind of getting into, I think, then you start thinking about, well, okay, well, what were my misses? Was it like my big vault? Was it like my cool trick sequence? Or was it like some out toss that like wasn't that big of a deal anyway? You start wondering what your successes were and what your, non-successes were.
Well,
But
there's a caveat in there though that I like I know that what we spoke to was success of the catches, but a tiny little detail maybe to add to what is important to me is that the execution of the thing is right. It's not necessarily always that it's a catch. So like if I throw my disc out there and it's wobbly and it's careening off to the side and my dog catches it, I'm not going to celebrate that. So it's going to be good disc, it's going to be good catch percentage, but I'm still going to get a crap score if my throws and my vaults are wobbly and the dog is barely saving them. And
well,
the
you
dog
should get a crap score.
so that
You
would
may
be
not.
side of my, when I'm talking about like my execution of the moves being right, it would be like that the disc is in an ideal place for the dog to jump nicely and catch the disc. So it's not just about success. It's also about how the actual, for me, in my criteria of what makes it a win. From my Moxie days, she saved all kinds of crazy stuff, and I used to get upset that like my score wasn't as high as I wanted, and I didn't understand why. My dog score was always high, my handler score was low. And it was because she was saving me. And I didn't really understand that there is a ideal placement position to create interception and easier catching for the dog so the dog looks better. So I just want to add in there, for me, it's not only about the success of the catching, because sometimes the success of the catching can be misleading, that you think you deserve a better score than you do because your dog caught it, but they landed like crap, or they caught it, but you threw it like crap. And so neither one of those things is going to give you a good result, even if the dog had success.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it sounds like you had some good judges, and perhaps this was happening at USDDN. But yeah, I think that sometimes you end up with I agree with you that you should not get a good score if the catches are happening, but the tricks are not coming off the way that they're supposed to. And it, like we talked about it, I think a couple episodes ago about like, well, my dog does a really cool flip on this side, and I want to show that they can do a flip on the other side, but it just looks really bad. Well, don't do it. We don't want to see things that look really bad. Like we want to see success that looks great, like not success that looks kind of lazy or not rotating fully or something so that it doesn't look good. But yeah, I think that could be a whole nother topic that we have.
I think I have something to tail off of this a little bit that it's a little different than what Dre was saying, but I think it ties in. So after the AWI round, when we did our toss and catch and freestyle, and then the top 10 was made. I think it was like 11 through into the 20s were very, very, very tight. Top 10 get a second round. But one of the judges, Gary Suzuki, he came up to me after the round and he goes, "Did you make the cut?" I'm like, no, I was on a field and I knew I wasn't gonna, unless I had nailed like a epic toss and catch round and hit the middle half circle every single time. And maybe I could have done it. I just knew like you got to have more than a 75% catch ratio at a world finals for it to feel even, but he was like, just talking. I think he was one of he said the human side of the judging, he scored really high on my end. He loved it, and he was going over all the things that he really liked about it. And that was just reassuring and nice to hear, because I was happy with parts of it, but I knew we didn't come together as a team, both parties, and do what we needed to do to make the cut. But that was just nice to hear and stuff. But it it shows that, like, the human might be on, the dog might be off, the human might be a little bit off, and the dog might save your butt over and over again too. But I'm just continuing to figure out how I can just make it even easier for her, even though she is a very good dog. There's a lot of people who would kill to have a dog like Susie, and I love playing with her, and she's amazing. She just has difficulties catching sometimes. She's not always super consistent, even when the disc is right there, but she's a back of the mouth catcher. She lets the disc hit her in the back, and I think dogs who do that, it sometimes might bounce out a little bit if they're getting a little lazy. I think if they catch more in the middle or front of their mouth, they might have a bigger chomp right there to snag that disc, and I think there might be something to that, but I haven't done any like science behind it. It's just something I experience, and I wonder if it gets a little sore back there in the back of their mouth a little bit. And maybe that affects the catching sometimes. It could be a lot of different things. So that's where I start thinking about the disc sometimes, and like, hey, I'll give you an air to catch because it's a little lighter. But then when we brought up the discussion on the discussion page and stuff, I believe, when I was making the Inspire Dog podcast episode, just talking about it, I saw people talking about the edge around, like when it comes out of the mold, it being kind of sharp. I never really thought about that. I'm like, oh, my disc is spinning pretty fast, especially like when you have a good throw, it's not wobbling, it's spinning really nice. I'm like, that's maybe, since she's a back of the mouth catcher, maybe that's hitting her back there and slicing her, because she does bleed sometimes after her rounds. Like after, a quarter of the round, I noticed I was seeing some bloody discs at AWI, and maybe that was probably a contributing factor to it all too. So I'm like, oh, maybe I need to Dremel the edge a little bit just to get that smoothed down. It's not something I ever did before. On a pretty new disc. I did it for like bites,
Yeah, I used to take my airs and extras and scrape them on the concrete on the tops and around the edge when I worked at Purina, because we were going through so many new discs for so many dogs. So we would scrape up every set of discs before we used them. Mayhem had that issue with the back of the mouth thing, and I think
who did?
Anytime Mayhem, my cattle dog, I had attributed it to cattle dogs. When they get an arousal, man, they get that extra push. Malinois do the same thing. Like they punch the disc unnecessarily. Like they can't just catch it, they got to punch it. I feel like a lot of her having that issue had to do with her over arousal towards a catch. When in the competition setting, it gets worse, right? Because they get more excited and they catch all the way back in the back. And she actually needed surgery on hers because she had so much scar tissue, it built up to like crazy amounts. But anyway, I think that's a crazy cattle dog thing.
I don't think Susie's as aroused as Mayhem. Mayhem was next level. But Mavis, my dog Mavis, who doesn't love freestyle but just plays it sometimes, but she playing games and stuff, she's in high arousal. She catches at the front and gets discs stuck in her mouth all the time. And then she's sitting there looking at me like
trying to get it up.
Yeah. So
talking about
So I want to jump in on this disc thing here. So like, because Ben and I were talking about this back and forth on Messenger a little bit. And so I've always just anecdotally noticed that like extras, extra freestyle, airs, they're a little bit more rigid, right? Like if I were to try to like push them and bend them, they don't bend as easy as say like a Taffy Sonic or a Taffy Star or Superstar or something like that. And so Ben and I were talking about, like we should do some sort of science investigation. So I didn't want to do any illegal investigations with pets. I didn't want to get
no animal testing.
Have anybody come out and be like, what, do you have paperwork on this? So I just did it without the dogs, did some science investigation. And it was a very simple investigation.
You drew the cat face, and whichever one hurt more.
No.
Jack's dead.
All I did was I took the discs and I dropped them like vertically onto the ground. And I measured how high up they bounced off the concrete. So what are you looking at?
Awesome.
Both of us were very entertained by this science experiment.
Yeah. I think you
So
need to set like an exact height though, not just trust your hand, Jack.
yeah,
What,
this
did
was
you
You
just
gotta have
video
a
it?
dropping mechanism.
Did
I
you video
definitely
it?
did not
That's what
control.
Mythbusters would do.
Yeah, I definitely did not control all my variables. My
Uh,
elementary students would be calling me out on this. I had many
it's
manipulated
debunked
variables.
already.
However, in my quickly put together science investigation, um, the extras bounce the highest. The freestyle extras bounce the second highest. The airs bounce third highest, and the taffy discs barely bounced. Now I wasn't throwing them up and then down. I was just dropping them. They didn't have any spin. Um, or they might have had a little bit of rotation, but I didn't purposely put a bunch of spin on them. So my hypothesis is that the ones that bounce higher,
Or
if
harder.
I've got a dog coming in hot to try and catch that disc, and like Ben said, their mouth is open and maybe it's going to hit in the back, a rigid disc, a bouncy disc, one that bounced the most, is going to hit a tooth, hit the back of the mouth, and possibly come back this way, out of the mouth. And if my dog doesn't quickly chomp on it, it's possible that as my dog's flying through the air to catch this bouncy disc, it hits a tooth or something like that and bounces off.
Yep.
Whereas if it's one of those that squished when it hit the ground, like, collapsed on itself when it hit the ground, like the Superstar or the Super Sonic Taffy, like when it hits, it's instead of it hitting and bouncing, it's hitting and collapsing, like a crumple zone would be. Like if you were like thinking of like F1 racing or NASCAR or something, crumple zones, right? So like the disc that crumples, my hypothesis is if you've got a real drivey dog that hits those discs hard, they're not going to bounce them out of their mouth as much.
Yep. I think there's legs to that. The only well, one of the variables would be the weight of the disc. Does the star keep itself lower because it's that much heavier that it just doesn't bounce as much? I don't know.
I think that the force, like when you drop a more solid object, there's going to be less vibration through that object for the energy to
Mhm.
diffuse.
But I
So
think we can all feel it too, right?
object, the energy is going to come out in more of a straight line. If you have an object
Mhm.
that's more fluid, like liquid, as you drop it, the waves, the energy goes through the object laterally. So if you have a hard object, it's going to bounce in a straight line. If you have a soft object, it's going to compress. And the
But if
compression
it's hard and
compresses the
heavy,
energy.
like a cinder block,
We did this in
it might bounce. It depends on
elementary
how high you
school.
drop it.
We
But
did this.
like,
Jack can tell us. We did this drill in elementary school, dropping a rock and a feather about what gravity makes fall faster with the more mass it has, the harder it falls to the earth.
Well, actually, the velocity of the only thing that would make a
Oh, mass
rock
times energy.
fall
Oh shit.
the only thing that would make the rock fall faster is the fact that the feather is getting caught up
Wind
in the air.
resistance, right? So it's the
Yeah,
same because gravity is the same.
right,
So it shouldn't make a difference on the pull down to the earth because the measure of gravity is the same regardless of the object.
right.
So they shouldn't
but
fall.
I do think
It's
stars are pretty
the,
soft
it's just the
overall.
yeah, how much
I'm
space
just I'm just
between
playing devil's advocate to this experiment. But I do think they are. I mean, that's why I use them. That's why I love them so much because I think they're a really nice balance in the wind for holding up in the wind, but also being soft and they're not as heavy as a superhero. So I think they glide in the air a little bit more. But some people might go to like a super arrow. I don't use those because the ones I had used were rigid. I thought were really rigid. I think there's different runs out there though that are
Sure.
all over the place. Somebody brought one up to our tent last weekend. Was like, hey, do you have this? I'm like, that's a super arrow, but I've never seen a super arrow that flexible before. We don't have ones like that. That's awesome. She's like, it's like 12 years old or
I go
whatever.
through the box and I find the ones that pop the most and I take
Yeah.
those ones.
Yeah, because
Well, and
we like,
they have super arrows made out of star
Taffy
material,
and candy.
and then they have
yeah.
super arrows made out of candy
Mhm.
material.
Mhm.
And I always find the candy is not quite as flexible as the
Yeah.
taffy, unless you
Yeah.
get like those super soft candy like atoms that they have.
Yep.
Um, Like what we're talking about though is only like one aspect
Yeah.
of the catch, right? It's only that aspect of I've got a hard driving dog hitting this disc, and is the disc going to crumple, allowing it to stay in the dog's mouth, or is it going to pop? But like Ben was talking about, he made his, kind of Sunday decision on
Based on the
airs
wind.
based on, the
Stamina.
wind, based on dog stamina, things like that, right? So like we talked about the Superstar, and the Taffy maybe is better for that hard driving dog that's going to,
Yep.
be racing at the disc. But like those, I think Ben said it, the stars are going to drop quicker. The Supersonic is going to fly faster. Like,
Mhm.
so depending upon your dog and how long they've been playing throughout the day, like that could also impact your catches.
And
Go
I have
ahead,
a point to this. I go out and I mean, was it the worst round of my life? No, but it felt like it. Um, and I knew we were gonna likely not win the championship or have as good of a chance. We got second. We were right there with Jet. There's so many good teams. We have so many good teams there. Like in 50% of the overall is freestyle. 25% of the things is from Saturday for freestyle and 25% Sunday. I knew I did what I needed to do on Saturday, but not on Sunday. But we still finished like within a point from first place because she went and had epic games. Right after that, she goes out in spaced out and gets her first ever 145. And guess what I threw? Airs in the same wind, but I'm throwing backhands to specific spots. In freestyle, you're all over the place and you need to be able to manage your wind. And I failed at that on Sunday, but you're going all different directions. You need to be able to throw those airs in all those different directions and with different releases, in your vaults. You got short throws, long throws, all this in spaced out. Yeah, you might be throwing different directions, but I threw from the 4 zone and I was able to manage the wind, and I can just throw floaters out there. And yes, she was a little bit tired, but she was able to hit every single thing around the field, and it gave her that extra second she maybe half second she maybe needed, where I think the stars maybe would have fallen out of the air on some of the downwind spots a little bit more. But yeah, so throughout the day she did great when I did the airs, and I did airs during greedy, and she had a 60, our first ever 60. So and I'm throwing against all the winds, but those are all just that's a game, and it's backhands. Freestyle's very different.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
All right.
anyways, that those are things I'm playing around with and trying to continue to figure out. I used to get killed in the wind, even with stars, because we're always playing in 20 plus mile an hour wind here. Um, it just seems like half the comps are 20 plus mile an hour winds, and I figured out stars pretty well in it. But now I got to just get those other discs going too, because I want to be able to have to play around. Because my dog just gets, I think catalogs just give their all early on, and then they kind of peter out after they give their all. And she loves to play still, but I want to be able to try to make it as successful as possible, basically. Not every dog goes through that.
I think so we started with freestyle in mind,
Yeah.
and we were talking about the importance of catches in freestyle. And obviously through this conversation we know that the selection of disc could likely make a difference in your catches. What I'd like to ask is like what other things could make a difference for players in terms of them getting catches out on the freestyle field? Like, is there anything that maybe goes into y'all's practice routines that, you know, up uplifts or levels up your catching?
Do you mean like when we're training at home prior to the event, what we do to help improve our dog's catch ratio? Like how well they catch?
Exactly.
At the event. Okay.
Yeah. Like
Um,
obviously it transfers to an event.
so I'll start with this one. For me, I would say the training I do at home, if they catch the disc, I mark it. If they're not catching the disc, I do the work that needs to happen so that they catch the disc, or I ditch it. So in my routines, if a move is like not above 90%, it's not in there. So I can do it at 90%, and that takes into percent 10%, could be wind or nerves or the dog's a little tired or excited. That's where that 10% variability comes in. I would say environmental factors, but I can do it 100% of the time in practice, 100% of the time. That would be a move that I would have in my routine. Um, So in regards to the success of it, it's going to depend on the training that I do in the first place to make sure the dog has an understanding of that move before it's in my freestyle. Now, if you're a newer player, you wouldn't have that high of a percentage because you don't have that many moves that are at 100%. So you have a lower percentage move, maybe 50%. If you hit it 50% of the time, it's a new move you're working on, you'll put it in. A player like Ben is going to be at the higher percentage rate. So, I think most of the people that are playing it at the world's level, you're going to have a certain level of success that you want to have for the move before it goes into your freestyle routine, and that happens at home. So my training at home, and if let's say I have several students that are preparing for world finals and they have moves they're still working on, my suggestion to them is to do it as a take. Do it at the level that you're doing it in training until it's right. And then when it's right, present it. If you're a player that doesn't have enough content to fill a 2-minute routine at 90-95% success in practice, then you're going to be at 50% or 60% or whatever, and do the takes and slow it down and do your pauses and set up each of your moves. Because the judge is going to see, oh, this is a new player and they're working on their leg vault. Hell yeah, you did a great job. Or you're working on your flips. I can see that the dog's really working on their upward push. Hell yeah, do a great job. I'd rather see that than a dog like you're throwing your flip and the dog obviously is turning all the way around, waiting to catch it on the other side. It looks like the flip's incomplete and there's nothing that communicates to the judge that you're working on it. So it just looks like a poorly executed move. So that would be my thing. If I was working on success with my dog, I would get the success at home before I put it in the freestyle. If I'm a newer team, I'm going to have lower expectations that those things will be successful as thrown discs. So I would do them as takes. And I don't care if 3/4 of my routine is takes. I'm not winning the world championship today if I'm a brand new player. I'm not.
Yep.
So just
my first ever routine was just backhands
success.
around the field, just getting your feet wet, just doing it. And then you just continue to improve and evolve. Some people never even make this. And I think some people want to have the full routine, and they should for their brain. But sometimes you just need to get your feet wet and then just keep figuring it out too, just so at least you're playing and having fun. That's how I see it. But some people want to have the full routine. But yeah, within that, I mean, I haven't mixed in the excess move, Aaron's move, with the 4-disc toss. You toss 4 discs in the air, they catch 1, I kick the other and catch 2 in my hands. That's a good social media move. I can get it, I can do it, but I can't do it. I want that to be at least 75% of the time working before I do it. And there's a lot of little things that play with getting the kick disc at the right height. And for me also, the separation sometimes a little hard with the 3 in front of me, where the middle one I'm going to kick and I'm going to catch 2. When I do it, when I've tried it live, I've tried it live twice just because. I did it at AWI because the round already wasn't going that great. And I was like, if I want to pick up some points, I better nail this SHIT. I don't know if we can swear on this.
And did you?
Let's spell it out.
Did you nail it?
The judge, I had to do my bailout move, which I had to do both times. I had also did it in a trick off in July to settle first and second place. And the same thing happened again, where she caught the one that she's supposed to catch, but then the 3, I'm going to catch the 2 to do my kick, but there wasn't enough separation, so I caught 3. And then I can bail into a triple disc, like flip and do my other sequence. That was my normal ending sequence.
Yeah.
But if you nail how it's supposed to be, it's really cool. So I haven't hit it live yet, but I was like, I can hit it decently, and this routine's already not going exactly how I want. So the judges, I don't think even knew. But one of the things that Gary brought up is like, hey, you did and this is something important, I think, for players to know too, because every judging panel is different. He's like, hey, you did the triple disc thing 2 times, and I really liked it. And I was like, well, one of them was a flip version. One of them was just normal catch version. I do this, this, and this. And he, not all judges know that you're doing all those different intricate things because they're just watching routine. And I think that it still would have scored higher and done really well if the catch ratio was there. It would have everything would have felt more successful. And I think we had stuff there. But if we would have nailed that, I showed him the move on video and he's like, oh, that would have been really cool. I'm like, I know. It would have been really, I think it would have really upped things. But anyways, I want that to be, before I add it in as a full out thing, I want it to be at least 75, but hopefully into the 80% because it's such a technical move. And if it's super windy, like I probably just wouldn't do it. I'd just have my other moves I can do because we have a full routine without it, but it is a really cool move. Um,
Well, that brings in the question about balance, right? So, and this has
Mhm.
been a big conversation for this year's World Finals because there's been more of a I'm going to change the word I was going to use. There's been more selective criticism of tricks
Yeah,
in previous World Finals seasons. I don't recall ever hearing ever that they were giving deductions across the board for moves that a drop down of the dogs without the
yeah.
player being told or big deductions on scoring because there's too many non-disc tricks instead of the discs being more involved in the tricks. So both of those have kind of been big themes this year in the fall portion
Yeah.
of our finals so far. So we still
Was
have a
that
couple
something at Skyhounds as well?
and USDDN. I mean AWI and Skyhounds. Yeah. So I'm
Oh,
really
okay, so it's across the board because AWI that was a talk too.
yeah,
And
that was the
I will
first one, and then Skyhounds. Yeah, so now we have USDDN
okay.
and PIDC coming up. So I'm really curious to see if that trend falls off, or it's going to be interesting to see if now in the sport we have enough separation between organizations in their preference of style of play
Yeah.
that the old school AWI Skyhounds formats are really not interested in seeing any type of tricks that don't involve discs, which we knew was in the rules anyway. Like they ignore them.
That was something the judges talked to me about afterwards. They were like, "Hey, I loved how every trick you did was involving a disc because this is disc dog." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." But
Yeah,
that's my style play. It's not everybody's, and it doesn't need to be. I don't think.
right.
But
So you
that was something they
found that
liked about it.
format.
But then the score, I'm like, I mean, so that's what brings up in my brain. By the way, of what I'm trying to think about is like, if her catch ratio was better, it felt more successful, would have been more way up there because of that. Because the people that were getting bashed about that still were super badass and they were still way up there, even with those
They had better
deductions.
success.
But to them, it probably felt like the worst thing ever. I wasn't up there. So I'm just like trying to get up there. But I was still down there, even though they loved that. But again, I think that catch ratio would have made everything feel more successful.
And interesting, the AWI doesn't even have a catch ratio
They don't.
category aside from a
They
top
look at it though.
score, but it still
It
is
feels
the baseline for all of the scores, even
yeah.
though it's not an added score now, except for in. So it's just super interesting to see it.
Well,
And then we do in
But the
Sky.
feel of the round, you know.
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, when you so you know, our performance round technically doesn't have a catch ratio. Our revised one will, but it still doesn't count towards your points. It's just we will have a judge counting catches and misses so that the three judges who are scoring knows what it is. But like we've talked about it on this podcast before. It's the fallout from a miss. Like, you
The
know,
loss.
Ben's talking about throwing four discs up in the air at the same time. You know, something goes wrong. The dog misses it. Now your dog's chasing after a roller, probably somewhere that they shouldn't be. You maybe dropped one. You're trying to get the disc management back. You're trying to get your flow back. Now the shape that you were trying to make is no longer that shape. Like you've just got all this fallout in all these other categories. So it's not like when you think about the updog scoring in the criterion round, you have 10 points for your catch ratio. That's just a mathematical formula. You can get up to 10 points if you have 100% catches, right? So there's 10 points there. In the dog category, if you've been challenging your dog to catch this with different spins and butterflies and things like that, you've got 5 points you can earn there in the catch category. So there's 15. And then you have a couple places where it says it's defined and has a very bold, so it sticks out, that things should be successful, like in the trick category. So like you could be doing these monster tricks, but if they're not successful, you're not going to get as many points. You could probably even throw in like throw placement and flight in this as well, because if your dog's catching, odds are your placement and flight was pretty good. All said, that's only like 22 points out of 100. So all of those other places where you could earn points, however, are impacted, they're all connected. Even though they don't say catch on them, even though they're, showmanship or athleticism or whatever, like all of that kind of rises and falls with your success because there's this fallout that happens when you get a miss.
And what we see on the other end of that spectrum, not the fallout, but the teams that are like rocketed to the top of the standings because they have all catches. So regardless of the
Yeah.
variety of freestyle that's being delivered, regardless of
Not an up dog. Make
I'm
this
talking about,
clear.
yeah, I'm talking about
It
what we
might
see,
be.
just
You
what
never know.
Well, it
Nobody
shouldn't be.
tries to do it.
It
Nobody tries
shouldn't
to do
be.
it.
yeah,
But
it's just a big difference in criteria that's being covered. Like if we're to base
the new performance round, by the way, will help that. I think it was more of a thing in performance round than criteria.
yeah.
Because we had something, a player this last weekend who did had a higher performance round score than criteria round score. That person, I think, felt better about their criteria round, but the criteria round really extrapolates that round into way more detail. I think the judges then judge it a little differently based on that criteria instead of, even though you're supposed to look at the freestyle as a whole when you're judging it the old performance round way. That's just, I think, how it goes. I think this new version will be helpful for that too, to make things even more consistent.
By the way, if you're wondering about this new version that Ben is talking about and that I alluded to, we had a previous podcast that you can look up on. It's called Freestyle Big Changes in Freestyle, I think. So you could check that out there if you'd like. And then in January, we will have a new release of the freestyle rules where it will be there as well. We will be using those revised performance round scoring with the Freestyle Invitational. We'll be trying that out, tweaking it in any way that we have to, and then putting out the new rules in January.
I
Um,
wonder, like, so we're talking about catches and success and difficulty and criteria and all that, right? So like what are we really talking about is how do we get our
what
dogs
are we
like
really talking about?
we're talking about how do we get our dogs more successful in the freestyle field?
Yep.
And there's all the training happens at home and we learn our moves and we learn our routine and we put it all together, whatever, right? But like I just had this thought, like, what if consistent winning across the board in all different organizations really is like rewarding very slow, deliberate, successful, low risk freestyle.
Then I
Look,
think
just
that
look at the if just look at what we see results wise, right? If we see the stuff that's winning, it's really high success, right? Lower difficulty in regards to freestyle flow. There aren't a bunch of inside moves being linked together in flow, in speed. It's slow and deliberate, right? And a lot more outside throws, a lot less inside freestyle. So that's what's being rewarded. I wonder if that starts to shift because even if like those routines are just so much easier to have control. If you're
I
moving and running and doing all this stuff, like there's many more variables than if you're standing still,
right,
execute move to new part of the field,
right,
in there,
yeah.
execute a
Throw an
move,
overhand wrist flip,
move.
standing still versus running on a flank with your dog and then throw it and see if
Like I'm
you can
thinking
throw it
maybe
the
my
same.
strategy is not the best strategy. It's not what's getting rewarded. It's not. It's way harder than it needs to be, and it's not even getting rewarded. So why wouldn't I just simplify it? I'm talking straight up. Like this is not fluff. I'm talking straight up. I could go out there with my dog. I could do my routine with Capiche at 2/3 speed. I can cut out the part I don't like, and I can have one drop, no problem, all day. And I can nail that toss and fetch all day long. It'll be slow as shit, won't be fun, but it'll be successful and it'll have high difficulty and I'll have like hardly any drops because I can set up every little thing. Blink, boom. You don't
Well,
even
it's
have
still
to.
difficult though. You
What?
just admitted though that it's still difficult because you still have really good
Yeah, if I
stuff.
take out the difficulty element of operating with flow.
But it's still high difficulty, you just said, right? Because you still have, yeah, you're taking out one piece of you're taking it less difficult, but it's still difficult. And that's
Yeah,
part of it too. It's still technical.
right. And what the difference is going to be is the inside freestyle elements will not be in flow.
Yeah.
So if you take out the handler dynamic of running around, doing tumblings, jumping around and stuff, no running, no tumbling, no jumping around, none. No extra frill, no extra fluff, no extra dancing. Slow, deliberate freestyle. Move to a new spot. And Skyhound, you don't even need to move to a new spot. So that's just, for that one, we could just say you don't even really need to move anywhere. But I mean, strategically, that's a better strategy than the strategy I've got. I've made my stuff too hard. There's too many connection points that could be missed.
So I know Ben's got a hard out here in like 2 minutes. So I want to let him have.
We got 5 minutes.
All right,
we got 5 minutes.
Time warp challenge. So we're gonna button it up and then we're time warping.
All right. So I want to give Ben an opportunity to have a final closing thought too. But I will say I think Dre brings up a good point and another podcast topic right there that we could talk about. And the thing is, it is called freestyle. So I can go out there and I can do it just like you said, deliberate, very slow paced, and get lots of catches. Or I could say, no, I don't want to play like that. I want to play this way. One thing I know Kat and I talk about oftentimes, well, I talk to Kat about it. She just listens sometimes and I think pacifies me as I'm talking about it. But I wonder sometimes, like, what are we doing? Is this?
You can message me about it, Jack. I'll talk to you about it.
Thanks,
Ben.
Jack,
if Kat's not listening to you, you can just talk to me.
But my question is, like,
husband,
when you're playing freestyle, are we playing X Games freestyle, where like one person does a 720 and then a bunch of people are like, that was awesome, I want to do a 900, I'm going to work to do a 900? Are we doing X Games freestyle, or are we doing patty cake freestyle, where I just follow the pattern and do what you did and I do exactly the same and I get my score? Like, X Games, man, that's why we keep getting these big air. We need Red Bull as a sponsor.
You got Jack really fired up. I think we should give him some caffeine.
All right, Ben, final thoughts, go.
On what? Okay, so
one
one more thing I didn't bring up.
Okay.
One more thing I didn't bring up is I was talking to also somebody at Champs, and they're like, that I was talking about what I did with the stupid disc choice, how I failed there. They're like, that's why I only use the same disc all the time. And I'm like, I think there's something to that too. So there's people probably listening to this going, what do I need to change between round to round? Don't do any of that if you're not like good with the disc. I felt like I could handle the air in that wind condition until it all shifted, and then that was the wind the rest of the day pretty much. It's not wind that should have destroyed me, but with that disc choice, it just wasn't. I just made bad choices on how I was playing with it. I still think I could have executed it. I just didn't do it well. But if you feel confident with that particular type of disc, like that person just uses extras all the time, and that's just what they use. So they have no variables in that part. If that's how you feel best, that's probably a smart choice. I just have to I would just use my stars with all my dogs, no matter what, if I didn't have this thing I'm just trying to figure out and tweak with Susie's mouth or whatever it happens at those times. So I just maybe get a little too complicated with it, but I do think there's advantages when I switch that in games. And when I'm judging a bunch of games rounds, for example, or freestyle rounds too, I'm watching the dog and I'm like, ooh, they were almost there, but not quite. Oh, not quite there. The dog's getting a little older. They're getting a little more tired maybe too, or something. And I'm like, if that dog just had a little more float on the disc, so maybe it's just more spin, but I'm spinning the disc usually pretty well. Like maybe the throws are a little different, but maybe that disc, if they just used a little bit lighter of a frisbee, that dog could actually get to it. And I think a lot of people avoid light discs because you go through them more and it's expensive. But I think the dog would be more successful. It's easy for all of us to say as we're on Team Hero to get all these light discs and go through them. But I use them at halftime shows always for my dogs on basketball courts because they're a little slower there. And my success went like, whoo, when if you're listening, way higher when I switch to light discs on basketball courts. And then I use it in games as the days go on, with when I can tell my dog's maybe getting a little more tired, just to give them that little bit extra. But I like stars the most. And I think I do freestyle the best with them for me. But don't overcomplicate it either, because you might overcomplicate everything after listening to this.
That sounded pretty complicated. You're like, do it, but don't do it. But you could do it with these ones, and I did it with those ones.
I know, that's
complicated.
Welcome to my brain.
Keep it simple
Now, and why this is happening.
I want to do
keep it simple too. Don't overcomplicate.
Time warp?
What?
Are we ready for time warp?
What?
You're gonna have to go, and I don't want to miss our time warp minute.
Yes, let's do time warp. I didn't have a good time warp round this last weekend.
Okay, so do you remember our time warp game? We're going to ask you 10 questions, and you got to try and get all 10 questions.
Yeah, hopefully I don't like say something stupid this time.
Well,
flowers. I said roses. No, you didn't.
These are pretty nice. He was nice to you, so we're good. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Shot of coffee.
Some smelling salts or whatever.
All right, Jack, you got the first question?
I'm up.
Yep.
All right, ready, set, go.
What shoes should we get for freestyle?
Trail runners.
Do you have any nicknames?
Ben.
What was your first job?
Tasty Pizza in Dayton, Minnesota.
What's your most used phone app? Facebook.
Probably TikTok.
Favorite Updog game?
Favorite Updog game?
Yep.
Greedy.
Tacos or burgers? 26 seconds.
Tacos.
Name 2 European automakers.
20 seconds.
European, BMW and Volkswagen.
What's the latest show you binge watched? 8 seconds.
Oh, crap.
4.
A Billionaire Bunker.
Time.
Oh, I saw that one. Was that good?
Yeah, it was good. You just have to get over that it's not in English, which Anna can't get over, so she hasn't watched it yet. But I was like, it was really good. And then I was just thinking, because is it called Wayward? I can't remember the name of it. It's another Netflix one. It's in the top 10. That was really good too. I'm just trying to remember the name of it, but I finished that before Billionaire Bunker. So Billionaire Bunker is the actual one. I could remember that name. There's so many shows I can't remember the names anymore.
Yeah.
I like our 9th question, and I'm bummed we didn't get to ask it.
Well, we can ask it real quick. Should Jack and Dre be invited to the Freestyle Invitational?
Yes.
We're judging it though, so that's gonna be hard.
And the last question, Ben, was if Updog had to retire a game, which game would you pick?
Oh man, that's hard. I would have used to say Spaced Out, but I've learned to just really love Spaced Out. It would probably have to be Boom, but I like Boom because I keep getting top 10 in it. Because I like how it's Boom has made me better at all the other accuracy games because it stretches you out so much. That for that reason I love Boom, because I think it really stretches out your accuracy. But I think everybody wants it retired because they hate that part of it, but I like that part of it. So because Fireball, Spaced Out, and Greedy all have similar elements of being easier close ones of the accuracy, and I love accuracy games. So Boom is the one that stretches it to a new level, but it's so hard within 60 seconds to do it well and successfully. I feel like if it was 75 seconds, people would hate it less.
I don't know if they hate it, maybe it should only be 45 seconds.
I think getting a 0, but Greedy has that too, but it's easier because it's closer throws. And then people just don't play Boom in an expanding distance way, because not everybody can throw it that far either, and that's fine. So I think the distance element is hard for some people. But I mean, there's things too. I like the game, but I think that would be people's choice. But if you're asking me, even though I don't think it should be gone, Frizz Agility is my least favorite game, so it's boring to me.
Okay,
Frizz is a boring game. But it's the game that got me started. This is not good time warp, by the way. But Free agility is what got me started in it, and I worked my butt off this past month because it was at state champs, and because Susie stinks at dropping that disc and going, because in agility she gets overstimulated. She's like, I'm gonna keep this in my mouth, I'm gonna chomp it. And we've never gotten more than like I think we had a 125, but sometimes we get like 110s. I'm like, you're in, which used to be a good score, like 2017. Everybody's just gotten so good that I'm like, I got to figure this out. So sorry. Oh my God, I got to start my other session. I threw my pride out and he's a decoy.
I'm like, he's the one who gave us a hard start. And
he's the decoy disc. And it was awesome. And she got a 160. And I was like, yes. But anyways, I got to go do my session. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Thanks, Ben.
I'll go tell my person I'm sorry for being a minute late.
We'll say goodbye without you.
See you guys later. Thank you.
Bye, Ben.
We hope to see you all on an Updog
Dre,
field.
if we ever just don't have a topic for freestyle, we'll just put Ben on and he'll just start talking and we'll just stop the recording an hour later.
I think like 3 times in there, I was like, what are we talking about? I don't even know what we're talking about.
Like the questions, our questions like weren't even relevant after. First of all, he answered like 8 of them in the first section.
In the first question.
And then stuff became irrelevant. It was a great conversation though. That's all that matters. Hopefully it was entertaining to our listeners and got you thinking about catches. Really the purpose was catches are important. As Dre alluded to, and which I think would be a great another podcast episode, there does need to be a balance though between difficulty level in your tricks and throws and your catches. But catches are super important. There's fallout when you don't catch. And so hopefully today you learned some ways to work with your dog to get more catches. And also to think about what you put in the round of freestyle that goes out on the competition field instead of your backyard.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's
fun.
it, guys.
I would really like to do a 2.0. We should do a 2.0 of that one because I think we can go down.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, I want to talk about this whole X Games versus patty cake freestyle.
I think let's do it. Next episode, we'll record that. I love it.
All right. Well, we hope that you've enjoyed this. We hope to see you out on an Updog field soon. And
meantime, be kind to each other.
And be kind to your animals. We'll see you next time on The Sweet Spot. We need Red Bull as a sponsor.